Welcome to the Blueprint Breakers podcast. What is a blueprint breaker? If you live your life outside the typical traditional lifestyle blueprint, you are a blueprint breaker. We are here to start a conversation, to assemble resources, and to build a community. This podcast is for empowered women in midlife and beyond who are preparing for a powerful next era of life. My name is Amy A. Palmer. I am your host and facilitator for our conversations. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. To stay connected, up to date, and to receive all of our free resources and gifts along the way, join us at community.blueprintbreakers.com. Today's episode could not have landed at a more perfect time. I just returned from Thailand, where I was reminded that big emotions tend to show up right alongside big expansion. And with the holiday season here, a time that can stir up joy, stress, nostalgia, and everything in between, learning how to pause and recenter ourselves feels more important than ever. That's why today's conversation with Lauren Francisco is so perfectly timed. Lauren, the author of Composed, is a master at helping people direct their emotions instead of being directed by them. We talk about the power of the pause, how to position yourself for what you truly want, and how to hear your inner voice in a season that can feel especially loud. If you're craving calm, clarity, or a grounded reset as we head into the holidays, this episode is going to give you what you need. Hello, Lauren. How you doing
Hi,
today?
Amy. I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's so good to see you today. I'm glad we were able to find some time in between all of your world travels.
Yes, I've been to, I think, 11 countries just this year alone, and probably 4 in just the past month. It's been a wild ride, but I'm happy to be here with you virtually today.
Where are you right now? Where in the world are you?
I can't tell you.
It's a secret.
It's a secret.
How long are you going to be there until you have to go to your next stop?
Just a few days. My next stop is Canada, and I'll be there for a few days visiting family, and then back to South Africa, and who knows what's next.
I love that. I love that. And we're going to jump into that a little bit through our conversation, I'm sure. I wanted to start out. One of the things that we talk about at Blueprint Breakers is about living a life outside of the quote traditional norm or expectation. And that happens in a variety of different ways for us. We all take
Mhm.
different paths. So I'm curious to hear a little bit of your journey and experience. Like when you were a child, what did you understand the blueprint was in order to
Mm.
be a good, happy, fulfilled person?
Oh, man. To be honest, I feel like my family was very much an anomaly. We
Uh-huh.
grew up in a community where you didn't see many people of color who had opportunities to have a good education, especially private school education. And I think what made a difference in my life was that my parents were not complainers or gossipers. So
Mhm.
oftentimes they would discuss what was happening in the world, but after the
Yeah.
conversation, they came up with solutions and immediately. Not, "Oh, this is happening in our community, it's so sad, poor things." It was like, "Look, I want my children to have a better place to be educated. I want my children to live in a community where it's safe for them to play. Let's create it." And my mom literally created the school that I was educated in and was my principal, and she launched the school the month I was born.
Oh my god. Oh my god, with a
So much
newborn.
Yes, so much so that I was literally under her desk as she's rocking, and she had one person who enrolled on the first day, and it went from 1 to thousands of people matriculating and going through all the way. But I think that being the blueprint for my life of not complaining, but creating what you complain about, so creating the solution, that was normal to me. So you can only imagine what that did for me growing up, in my life. I actually feel like it's wrong for me to even complain, so much so that even my therapist is like, "It's okay to not always be so hyper positive."
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
but I really feel like if you are being privy to something that you're troubled by or that you find it bothers you, maybe
Mhm.
that's the creator or creation even telling you that you need to create a solution to it. And so I've never been much of a complainer, but very much a creator.
Wow. How amazing that you had that as a role model to begin your life and to be able to really create your foundation.
Yeah,
That's amazing. I love that. What's the quote? The "Be the change you wanna see in the world," or
exactly.
I'm messing it up terribly, but it's something along the lines of
No,
be the
that's it.
change you wanna see, and that's exactly what your mom was doing. That's amazing. So, how did that impact your choices and your path in life as you were growing up, as you were becoming an adult?
So just like you were saying, the famous quote, we had a famous quote in our home where my father used to always tell us that the quality of your choices will determine the quality of your life. And so I always would envision the life that I wanted, and I had no clue how I would get there. And it's still that way today. Like I see where I will go and where I will be, but I really cannot tell you the game plan as to how I'm going to get there. But what I do that's different is that I position myself to prosper, meaning I position myself around the people who inspire me. I position myself with the right education, with the right counsel. And I think that when you position yourself, it just puts you in a place where you will undoubtedly prosper. And you don't even know how or why, but because you're elevated by the places you go to and the people you're around, it tends to happen. So I think my upbringing taught me that we are in total control of what happens just strictly by our choices. So I chose to always, even when it hurts, even when it's difficult, even when I didn't want to, when everyone else around me and my peers were I experimented with things, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't perfect. I experimented with a lot, but I
Uh-huh.
experimented once. You know,
You
I
learn
didn't keep
fast.
I didn't keep going back and forth. So I just made sure that I always positioned myself. That's one of my favorite words, like position.
I find that really intriguing because what strikes me about what you're saying is I hear your faith and your connection to your faith. Like, so you have a clear vision. You have a clear vision of where you want to go, and you have faith and almost a knowing that you're going to get there. But you don't stop there. It's not like you're just gonna like hope and pray that you're gonna get there. You create the circumstances that move you in that direction. Is that how it
That's
plays out?
1,000% correct because I've tried the whole but actually, I kinda envy the people who can create, like, a playbook and a plan, and they'll
Uh
tell
huh.
you in 3 to 5 years, like, "This is exactly what I'm gonna do," and they have a checklist. My plans change from week to week, but
Right.
what is unique about my situation is that, just like I was saying, how I've been to 11 countries this year, I had no
Mhm.
clue. I only planned for 2. But because I was in the right rooms at the right time, having the right conversations, reading the right books, listening to the right podcasts, going to the right events, it put me in a position in a place where those opportunities were afforded to me, just from me being in the right place at the right time with the right people. And I
Okay.
believe that, yeah, like, when I position myself accordingly, I don't know, it just works out for me. Not always, but I have the faith that it will, and so when
Right.
I go to a particular place or even, like, our relationship from this podcast, something beautiful will come from it because I know that it will. I see
Mm-hmm.
it very
Mm-hmm.
clearly, and when I believe, I see, and I position myself accordingly, and it truly comes to pass. People love
Wow.
to say use the word manifestation. I always use the words position.
I want to learn this. I want to because you say it as it sounds like it's something that actually comes a little bit naturally too. Like that somehow you inherently know the people and the places to connect with. Like how and that's and I that's something I don't know that I necessarily have. Like in terms of knowing when you are filling your life with the right people and the right opportunities and the right places and the right experiences. If you were to try to peel that apart a little bit, how do you do it?
It's very intuitive, and I believe that we all have that intuition and that voice within us. But I think what
Uh-huh.
is different from today and hundreds of years ago when people always the best philosophers you'll read about in the books that you read are always from people who had a lot of solitude. And I don't mean to say that we necessarily need to have a lot of it, but we're never alone with our thoughts. And when we are, they're always influenced by music, by culture, by whatever is around us. And so we lose that small, still voice that is within
Mhm,
us. And so
mhm,
oftentimes we mistake our intuition for what Instagram is telling us to do or whatever we hear on the street. And so we don't even know what we believe. We don't even know what we want for our lives. We just know what the world tells us what we want, what the world tells us as to where we should be. And so I'm very clear on what the world is telling me and what I believe
mhm,
personally. There's a
mhm.
very distinct difference because I'm alone with myself
Right.
enough to know my actual internal thoughts, not the intrusive thoughts that are telling me negative things, but that still
Mhm.
small voice that intuitively leads me. And once I identified the clear difference, I trust it and it hasn't, steered me wrong, but, let me
Fingers crossed, yes. One of the reasons why I recognize the exact truth in what you're saying is because this theme has been coming up lately in some of the conversations that I've been having with
Mhm,
several just very accomplished, very grounded women, this idea of getting quiet and getting still and really connecting with the internal. And just last night, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about because with my lifestyle, I'm nomadic and bounce around all the time, but I tend to get the most done and I'm the most creative and the most aligned during those chunks of time where I'm alone. Like I'll carve out weeks where I'm staying by myself and I don't have a lot of social stuff on
mhm,
my calendar and that it's just the solitude piece. So I think you're onto something there. I think that's
mhm. Yeah,
absolutely
I made an Instagram post about it a couple weeks ago about having a daily sacred moment. Self-care is such a buzzword now, and I love self-care.
yeah,
I live for self-care. But daily, we have to find ways to have moments with ourselves and be
right.
very intentional with that moment. So, not just, okay, I have solitude. That's just me sitting in silence. That's beautiful.
Mhm,
But what are you going to do with this intentional time with yourself to learn to love yourself even deeper and to understand
mhm.
yourself even more? And so I do that over tea time. I'm very intentional about like my loose leaf tea time and I
Yes.
sit down, I reflect, I write even, and I get, like, downloads, and I write them down, and when I reflect at the end of the year and look back at what I wrote during my daily sacred time, most of the things either
Mhm.
came to pass or they're in the works. So, yeah, that's that daily sacred moment,
Yeah.
really tuning into that internal voice, and like you said, solitude and just intentional time with yourself is
I
vital.
feel like I feel like I've shared tea time with you
Aw.
through your video podcast. I sit
I
there
love
with
that.
mine as you're doing yours and get to share the moments together. So in solitude, together in solitude.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about now, recent. If you had to explain currently at this point in your life, your goal, your mission, however you want to talk about your purpose, what are you focused on right now in terms of your
Mhm.
impact?
So I do a myriad of things, and I always tell people, "What do you need me to do?" Because that's what I do. But if I had to sum it all up, my actual goal in life is to be just like a global citizen of the world. I have a nonprofit called Diverse City. So it's spelled
Mhm,
like diverse with city, but it's you could say diversity. So the whole mission behind that is just the connecting the world through meaningful travel, service,
mhm,
and storytelling. And so since I go to so many countries and I host so many people around the world, I oftentimes don't want to be the person or the traveler who just takes from the place I visit, but I want to give back as well, learn from the
mhm,
culture, understand that and feel as if they're our neighbors because they actually are. And so when I say being a global citizen of the world, that is my vision where compassion, culture, and contribution coexist. And so I'm currently doing that through travel. And it's a beautiful thing that I'm also learning is that during my travels, the most meaningful part of travel is not seeing new places, experiencing new things, but it's the connection that I feel to people regardless of their beliefs, regardless of where they are, regardless of their socioeconomic status. all people on all sides of the spectrum, you can find connection when you make that the intention. But if you only look at people as someone who someone you can serve or some way they can serve you, then you miss that connection piece. And so my goal and mission right now is to be that gap, that bridge in the gap, I mean, with
Mhm.
travel and connection and community and culture, is that people can go around the world, have a beautiful time, but feel that connection to people
Mm.
and to culture. And not just feel it from a standpoint of like, here's a show of dancers or here's some cool little trinkets. I really want people to sit down again, share meals, and understand that we have way more in common than not. And
Right.
so that is my mission and vision right now. And I also love to give back to entrepreneurs, local change makers in the areas in which I travel. And I'm connected to a lot of school systems, orphanages, and other small nonprofits because
Mhm.
I am a fan of connecting with people who are already doing the work. So instead of me, when I travel, saying, I'm going to do a soup kitchen or I'm going to have this event and have a giveaway, I'd rather find a small organization or a small school or entrepreneur who's already doing the work and figure out ways that I can support them, our group can support them, and my organization can
Mm.
support them. And also we can build a connection and build some sort of collaboration. And so that's my
Mm.
goal with diversity. It's growing. And so I am in the middle between being a life coach still and doing that as well. But I found that being a life coach never stops. And
Yeah.
so I actually
Well, it's
I
life. It's life.
exactly. I don't even call myself a traditional life coach. When I use the word life
Mhm.
coach, life is constantly coaching us at all times, and
Mhm.
we just need to figure out the lesson that life is trying to teach us, or we'll keep repeating the same cycle. And so that's what I mean when I call myself a life coach, is I'm just trying to help identify also for myself and for other people that I work with, what is life trying to teach you? Why are you in these cycles and how can we figure out what the message is? That's the goal and the mission and what I'm currently doing in the world.
Yeah, no, huge. That's a huge goal and mission. With your nonprofit, how do you accomplish that? Are you sponsoring groups of people and that's how you're making the connection? Or you're bringing them to other countries and going in deep on a local level and having experiences? Is that how it happens?
Yes, so it started small. It's something that I did as a solo traveler at first, where I'd never announced it, I never posted about it, but whenever I would
Mhm.
travel, I would always find a way to give back or to volunteer. And then
Mhm.
I slowly started introducing my friends and my family. And then I became that girl that you call when you just want a trip. People would say,
Right.
Lauren, I need to go across the country. I don't really know where to start. And so I would plan travel, but I
Mhm.
always would make sure that I added some sort of service opportunity in it
Yes.
and so that's how it started and that's how it began. And so currently, I take people around the world, whether it's through my coaching services or through private travel. But during that private travel, we're just very intentional about collaborating with small entrepreneurs, with school systems, with orphanages and other nonprofits as a partnership. And like I said, it's not just us giving to them, but us figuring out
Right.
ways that we can collaborate and learn
Right.
from them as well and build connection.
That's beautiful. That's not something that I have been doing as I've been doing and now you've just inspired me. I have a trip coming up, like mentioned, and so now I'm thinking, "Huh, I need to look into ways of having that same sort of connection and giving back to where I'm going." So,
But it
thank
could
you for
start
that.
so small. I think, like, when I tell people I have a nonprofit, they automatically think, "Oh, man, it must be this huge organization where you're doing a ton of things." For me, it's just
Mhm.
about the intentionality. If you say, "I
Yeah.
want to go to a restaurant, but I really wanna be intentional about connecting with my waitress or the host," that in
Yeah.
itself is doing the mission and the goal of my nonprofit, is just being intentional about connecting with the person, not just what they
Right.
can offer you or what you can offer
Right.
them, but who they are, getting to know them,
Mm.
understanding their culture. And if you can leave that restaurant saying, "I understand this person. I understand them more than when I first walked into this facility," then mission accomplished. It doesn't have to be so grandiose. It can be
Yeah.
just intentionally connecting to beautiful people and finding similarities.
Can you imagine what it would be like if more people on a grander scale did this and approached this? I'm just thinking even just currently in the United States,
Mhm.
most of our current issues and challenges would dissipate if more people would get out and make these connections and reach out and just understand each other on a human level.
And that's why I believe that everyone that I meet, I want them to feel like my neighbor because they technically are. If we're beside each other, we're neighbors, so let's act like
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I keep waiting to meet your neighbor on your video podcast
Aw.
because I think that there was somebody that was coming by or something, and maybe it was a gardener or something
Mhm,
nearby,
yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, there's her neighbor."
It's shared farmland,
Oh,
and
that's amazing.
so, yeah, I'm making new friends all the time.
Yeah, I love
More animals than humans, though. I
it.
see a lot more
That's good
animals
too.
than I
That's
see
good
humans.
too. They make good company.
Mhm.
So let's talk about your book that you launched earlier this year, I think, right?
Yeah.
While you were hitting 10, 11 countries, you also managed to publish a book.
Yeah,
Um,
I released it on my birthday. I have it here beside me. Well, it's
Happy
backwards.
birthday, composed.
Yes.
Yes. So what compelled you to write it?
My background is in psychology and clinical social work.
Oh,
So I have an MSW, and I was working in private practice as a therapist. And people always would talk about emotions so negatively. I'm full of jealousy, I'm full of rage, I'm full of anxiety, I'm full of frustration. And they would see this as a negative thing. And so I wanted to
mhm.
change that because I don't believe that there's nothing that is bad about an emotion.
Right.
Emotions are wonderful. They're messengers, they're indicators, and they're trying to tell us something. Like, for example, if someone tells me they're jealous, maybe they're feeling just a bit unfulfilled. If someone's angry, maybe they're just filled with a little bit of discontentment and they need to identify why they're so filled with this rage and how they can redirect it. But I wanted to show people that emotions are beautiful and
Mm,
they're trying to tell us something. Just like I was telling you earlier, there's a message behind every emotion, and you will keep being
mhm.
filled with it and overcome with it, and it will direct you and control you until you figure out what the message is and how to direct it. And fun fact, the reason I put a director's chair and called
Uh-huh.
it the art of directing your emotions is because I also studied a little bit of film in college and cinematography. And in studying that, I realized that when you see a film, it looks like a masterpiece, but it would literally be a horrible production if there was no one
Yes.
directing the actors, no one changing the lighting, no one creating a narrative. If you just allow anything to happen in front of you and say, "Oh, I hope it turns out pretty good," nothing will come from it. So it's the same with our emotions. So I wrote it in such a cinematic way, I guess you can say, so that there are metaphors for life and how to
Mhm.
direct emotions just like you direct actors, just like you direct lighting, just like you write for a film, you can do the same for your life with rewriting the narrative.
Yeah. And I could tell that you had a background in film when I was reading the book. I actually am a professionally trained actress. That's what I went to
Really?
school for.
Okay,
Yes,
and
yeah.
see.
Yes, scene, exactly. So
I love that.
yeah, so the metaphors, like, hit home for me, but you don't have to be an actress for the metaphor to hit home, it's very clear. And I also loved just the photographs that you used to promote the book because you had a wonderful New York City background, and I did my struggling actor thing in New York City many years ago,
Aw.
so I could connect with that. But the book and the way I have to describe the experience that I had in reading it. It was like having a meditation session and
Oh, wow.
I just felt my nervous system go from tight wound. I could feel myself slowly just relaxing and easing up as I read through. I mean, it was so I
Wow.
must have read it at the perfect time for me because it was so exactly things that I was experiencing. As you talk about how to navigate different emotions and what it does to your nervous system, all of those things. I posted a picture of sitting on the beach watching the sunset, reading your book, and it was like the perfect
Oh my
it was the
goodness, I
perfect
love that.
experience. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome," and I'm highlighting the whole because I have it on my Kindle, and I was just, like, highlighting everything as I went. So, thank you
That's
for
beautiful.
writing
Thank you
it.
for sharing that. That's a dream for someone
Yeah.
to receive it the way you intended it to, and to read it in such a beautiful place on the beach. Oh, what a dream.
Yes.
So thank you for that,
Yes.
Ian.
And I go back and read different sections of it when I'm in beautiful spots too, so it's just a good thing to do. So, when you set about creating this book, what was your desired result? What did you want the reader to get from it?
I wanted people to realize that if you're not directing your emotions in your life, something or someone is. You may not realize it, but the person across from you can be directing you. So things that you consume can be directing you. Your family can be directing you. Your spouse, your friends could be directing you. But until you take full control over the narrative of your life, which comes as a result of you controlling your response to your emotions, you will never be in control. And then you'll always find yourself in positions where you're like, how did I get here? How did I get here? It's because someone was able to manipulate and control your response and your actions. So just
Mhm.
like we were saying earlier, the quote that I used to always hear as a child, the quality of your choices will determine the quality of your life. It's the same with our emotions. Until you learn to direct them, someone else will write the story to your life because they'll be in control of you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Now, along that theme, I do think about how people just plod along on their life. They're on autopilot and it's just happening. If
Mhm.
they've lost control, like when you're talking about if you're not the director and you've lost control, what can you do to regain it and get back into that director's chair?
There's a lot of things. I guess I'll give you 2 examples. The one
Mm.
main one is until you can identify the emotion that you're feeling, like,
Uh-huh.
if we had a conversation and we got into this horrible argument, and I'm like, "Why did I just lash out at Amy?" First off, there's rage, there's frustration, knowing what that is, and then identifying the action, how did I respond, and then the
Mhm.
outcome. So there's
Mhm.
the emotion, there's the action, there's the outcome. Until you can identify the 3, you won't be able to change your situation. One
Mhm.
thing that I've noticed is that you'll never be able to change that emotion. Emotions are always gonna happen to you. We all feel them, and so we can't change that,
Mhm.
but we can change our action, which in return will change the outcome. So if we're in this argument and I'm full of rage, I'm full of frustration, instead of me saying, "You're an idiot," or instead of me
Mhm.
saying, "Oh my gosh, you just don't understand me," I could do something simple called the pause, which a lot of people talk about, and I talked about it in my book, but another way that I talk about it is, what would future me want? And so during that pause, that's what I ask myself. What would future me want? Tomorrow, after I have this conversation with Amy, will I be satisfied or will I be content with how I spoke to her or with the outcome? And if in that brief pause, the what would future me want pause, the answer is no, I tell myself to shut up. It's as simple as that. Pause and shut
Uh-huh.
up because it's not worth it. It really isn't. And so you have to picture the version of you tomorrow. Would you be proud of how you handled it? And so if you feel like you're going out of character, just take that pause and shut up. And I also wrote in the book how now when people see me do this, they're going to be like, "Now, are you mad at me?" But I take like my drink, I take a sip, and that gives me my moment to pause and collect my
Automatic
thoughts.
pause. Yeah.
And because I think that we tend to act so reactively instead of
Yeah.
intentionally. And then also, just as a little bit of a side note, a lot of times people will say, just do what your body tells you to do. Your body will, no. Your body can trick you, it can deceive you. Like your body has desires, it has cravings that you can't always give into. And so you have to lead your body and you have to lead your mind. And I don't know if you're a spiritual person, whoever's listening to me is a spiritual person, but I believe in like a hierarchy of an alignment where my spirit,
Mhm.
my soul, and my body. And so my spirit informs my soul, which my soul is made up of my mind, my will, my intellect, my imagination. And then my soul
Mhm.
tells my body what to do and it submits. So in moments of rage, frustration, anxiety, my body's like freaking out. I'm sweating. I'm having a full meltdown. My emotions can be ruminating with thoughts: you're not good enough, you're not prepared. But my spirit is what grounds me and what directs me from that director's chair to tell my mind to stop ruminating and tells my body it's okay. And so I tend to operate in that alignment, and that is what works for me as a director. And I actually have a moment where I guess I can share. I have really bad social anxiety, which oftentimes people are shocked by, so much so that when I was in college, I used to have panic attacks and they prescribed me medication. And so when I would have to present my research to the Department of Psychology, I once had a moment where I had a full meltdown and I could not get a word out. My mouth was dry, my hands were shaking. I forgot what I was going to say, what my research study was about. It was just a total
Mhm,
blackout moment. And so
mhm.
that's an example of when my body was just giving out. It was not showing up. I was like, "Come on, girl, you got this. You're
Yeah.
prepared." And then my mind in that moment was like, "Girl, what is happening? Get it together. You're prepared." But then I had to slow my thoughts and close my eyes, and I just did this. I told everyone, "Can everyone please just close their eyes with me and breathe?" And everyone closed their eyes in the room, and they would breathe with me. And it took about 2 minutes. I didn't say, "Guys, I'm having a panic attack. I'm freaking out." I just said, "Can everyone breathe with me?" And it's so funny because to this day, they're like, "Oh, that was so beautiful. Remember that one time when you told us all to breathe?" They have no clue that I was full on having a panic attack, but I didn't name it and call it that. I didn't
Yeah.
tell myself like, "I'm freaking out." I just said, "In this moment, I need to breathe and ground myself. I'm okay. My body's freaking out, but I need to get my body under control. I need to direct my body. I need to direct my thoughts." And my immediate thought was to breathe, just
Breathe. Mhm.
and the whole room did it with me before presenting my research, and I was like, "All right, now let's get started." And it was probably 2, 3 minutes of just silence and breathing where everyone in the arena is just like,
They thought you were leading this wonderful group exercise, right?
yeah, and
Bring them all
meanwhile, I was
together.
dying. I was like, my heart's like 155 beats per minute. I'm
Yeah,
like, "I'm gonna
yeah,
die." But
yeah,
I was like, "In this moment, I'm not gonna let my body direct this moment. I'm not gonna let my ruminating
yeah.
thoughts direct this moment. I'm gonna take full control and pause."
Yeah. I had a moment like that and did not handle it as well as what you're describing.
How did that go for you? What
It
was your
it
response
it
like?
it didn't go I had a panic. It was in an interview process, and I had to present a case to a room full of people and blacked out and just forgot what I was gonna say. That's the first time it had ever happened in my life, and just had a physical panic, and I had to, like, catch my breath, and in
Mhm.
fact, I had to sit down because we were at a conference table. I had to sit down at one end of the table and talk from a seated position for a while until I could feel
Mhm. Oh, no, I've been there too. I don't have all success stories. Let me not act like I've just been out here composed my whole life. I've definitely had stories where I'm like, "Woo, no, it didn't work out
Yeah,
for me." But, yeah, I went back to the drawing board and I was like, "Okay, instead of me just, like, freaking out and giving into the situation, what can I try
yeah.
differently?"
The reason why I'm grateful for the experience that I had is because, like I said, up to that point, that I had never it was my first experience of real anxiety and panic,
Mhm,
and so it made me do a lot of learning and growing and figuring things out and figuring out where these emotions were coming from and what was happening and why did my body get out of control. So it led me on a great path. It's just in the
mhm.
moment sucked.
Yes. It's so funny because I was writing about anxiety the other day because people often think because now you are this coach or which you understand when people's
Mhm.
in certain positions like, "Oh, you must have everything mastered." I'm like, "No, I still have
Right.
horrible anxiety at times." And I was
Mhm.
writing in my diary the other day, like, "Why do I feel anxious?" And it was a
Mm.
particular moment in time I was dealing with. And what I
Mhm.
got from it when it came to that situation was I felt so anxious because I cared so deeply. And then it made me remember how beautiful that is. I'm full of anxiety because I care so deeply about the person I'm speaking with. I am full of anxiety because I care so deeply about how they perceive me in this moment and how I treat them and my intention. I'm filled with anxiety because I care. And
Right.
when I realized that it was because of deeply caring, then I had compassion for myself. And then that compassion turned to me understanding my anxiety even more. And so when I was filled with anxiety, I just tell myself internally, I care really deeply right now. And so that was, like, some insight that I just had just recently.
That Yeah, that is amazing. What I'm hearing from you as you're explaining is there's a couple of themes that you mentioned earlier. Like, there's 2 things that strike me in what you're describing there as your recent realization and the whole breathing thing when you were nervous. It seems like it's about being intentional and being intentional and being aware, and taking that time. And then what you talked about earlier about getting quiet and being
Mm,
still, like
mm,
these observations and these learnings and these solutions would not be presenting themselves if you didn't take the time to get still, to get quiet, and to really have that connection with your spirit, soul, and self. It's very inspiring. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Lauren.
oh, no, thank you.
Can we talk a bit about your video podcast?
Sure.
Un what's the full name? Unbothered, but then there's what's the
Unbothered mastering self-improvement. The reason I call it that is because a lot of times people be like, "Oh, Lauren, you're so unbothered," and it's not that I'm, because I don't wanna make it sound like I'm just shallow and I feel nothing. That's not the case.
no.
It's just when I say that I'm unbothered, it's that I'm in total control over,
Mm,
what I will do as a result of how I feel. And I can be mad, I can be angry, I could be
mhm,
jealous, I could be frustrated, I could be have feelings or moments of depression. But when I say I'm unbothered, I'm not letting that define me. I can direct that depression, I can direct that anxiety, I can direct that frustration. I'm very much aware of what I'm feeling, but what I'm feeling is not who I am. So that's what I mean by unbothered, that I
mm,
can't control life circumstances, I can't control what people say, what they do, but I can control what I play in my mind over and over again. Similarly to the book with Composed, I believe
mhm,
that our thoughts and our lives are like movies, and so we tend to replay or fast forward or rewind the things that we want to ruminate in our minds or that we become obsessed with or that we can't let go of, and so for me, I replay mostly positive things in my head, or I replay the things that I am fond of instead of things that I don't wanna forget that I'm holding on to, and so I'm very mindful about the movies that I play in my mind, meaning the thoughts that ruminate, and when I say unbothered, it just means that, yes, life may have sucked today, but when I get home tonight, I'm not gonna let that completely take over my thought process. I'm
right.
going to be in control and remain unbothered.
I highly recommend the listeners to check it out on YouTube because it's literally like a mini film. Each episode is like a mini it's a cinematic experience along with listening to your thoughts on different topics. And I love that you get your topics from your audience and they choose what you're going to talk about next. So it's really wonderful. I don't
Mm.
think it's a coincidence that your book is composed and your podcast is unbothered. And I never would think that meant like shallow that you don't like feel anything. But it's so matched to who you are in terms of you can tell. And you and I have never met in person. We've only had online interaction, but even through our online interaction, you can tell that there's a depth and a breadth
Mm,
of emotion and wisdom. But I think the compose and the unbothered part is you can also tell that you're just very aligned. You're aligned and connected to your truth, and you just have confidence and faith
mm,
in who you are, where you're going. And so I think that's what spills out in your book and
mhm.
your podcast.
That sounds like a great bio. I need to get you to introduce me if I speak the word. Can you just let me, like, chop that up and then put
Yeah.
that before
We'll
some of
take the transcript of this conversation. You can use whatever you want, but it's true.
Thank you, I
Uh,
appreciate it.
so is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners today?
I think just a reminder that we are in actual control of our destiny and our lives based off the quality of our decisions.
Mm,
If you're not in control, someone or something else will be. So it might as well be you.
mm, mm. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to make sure that all the information about both your book and your podcast and you are all in the show notes so that everyone can find you. But it was so good talking to you. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you all for who are listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Blueprint Breakers podcast, Pause with Purpose, Position with Intention. And a very special thank you to my friend and guest, Lauren Francisco. Thank you again, the listener, for listening and sharing this episode with your friends. If you haven't done it yet, please follow, like, subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. Have a great week. Keep on breaking those blueprints and rewriting your own.